Thank you everybody for joining us here today. My name is Fabiana Bacchini. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation and also a mother of a surviving twin who was born 26 weeks and he's now almost 8 years old. The Canadian Premature Babies Foundation is really committed to keep giving you education and also support during this very difficult time that we are living in during this pandemic. And every Monday and Fridays at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time, we are hosting Facebook Lives. And today's an exception. We had to record it because of technical difficulties. But we are doing live with experts and parents from all over the country to answer all your questions and concerns. And every Wednesday, Kate Robson, who is a psychotherapist and also a mother of 2 premature girls, is hosting a real-time peer support group for families who are in the NICU, but also for families at home. You can join her group by joining our Facebook group, which is the Canadian Preemie Parents Network here on Facebook. And today I have the honor to bring these amazing women together from all walks of life and from all over Canada to celebrate Mother's Day. So I have here Carrie Netzel. Carrie, just wave so they know who you are. Carrie's in Winnipeg. She spent 7 months in the NICU with her son, Matthew, who was born at 25 weeks. She's currently the NICU Family Support Coordinator at the Health Science Center in Winnipeg. And she's also the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation Family Ambassador in Manitoba. Welcome, Karen. I also have Jenna Morton. She's in Moncton. She's a parenting journalist and blogger, the host of CPBF's With You in the NICU podcast series, and the mother to twin syndrome survivors born at 32 weeks who are now 7, and their big sister age 8. So she's really busy. She's also spent a few hours in the NICU for observation. So Jenna had 2 NICU experiences. And then I have Torrie Richard. She's in Yukon. She's a mother of a baby born at 24 weeks. She's a writer and fitness enthusiast who lives in Yukon with her husband, stepson, and daughter. She also the founder of Preemie Parents of Yukon. Thank you, Torrie, for joining us here today. I know it's early morning for you. And I have also Shakira Baker. She's a former preemie born at 26 weeks, weighing only 1 pound and 10 ounces. She's now 29 years old. She has achieved an abundance of success and is passionate about work with persons with developmental disabilities. And she's also our newest volunteer at CPBF, coordinating the COVID care program. And I just recently met her and I was so happy to hear her story and how she grew up as a preemie. I think it's a lot of hope for us parents of preemies who are still very young. So thank you all for joining us here today. From across Canada, we are very happy to be sharing our stories and how those stories connect us all as mothers and preemie children. So I want to ask all our guests to tell a little bit of their story, how they end up here, and what happened in their lives after the NICU. I will start with you, Jenna.
Sure. All right. So as you mentioned, we had twin boys who had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And for us, it was a whole lot of surprises and a whole lot of best case scenarios. I often talk about it kind of being a fairy tale version of prematurity for us. So at 19 weeks of my second pregnancy, our daughter was 1.5 years old, or not quite at that time. I went in for the first ultrasound that I had for that pregnancy, and that was when we found out that we were having twins. That was on a Monday. Tuesday, we were called back by maternal fetal and told that they had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, which happens in about 250 cases or so a year in Canada. Basically, for people who don't know, one twin starts taking from the other. So there are complications for both twins and for the mother. All 3 of us were at risk. We were fairly far advanced. You can stay in stage 1 or stage 2 of TTTS and not have any intervention, and things can work out. For us, we were candidates for surgery. So on Wednesday of that week, we flew to Toronto from New Brunswick, and we saw the team at Mount Sinai. On Thursday, we had surgery, laser ablation surgery that was life-saving for all of us. And again, from that moment on, we were best case scenario. We were told when we were discharged on the Friday, the best case scenario would be getting to 32 weeks. Because we lived close enough to a very well-staffed NICU and maternal fetal unit in Moncton, we were allowed to come home right away. So by Saturday, we were back home. I spent 12 weeks on modified bed rest, so I was able to stay at home, which was really important because we had our toddler daughter who we were trying to keep life normal for while everything was happening. And I was able to go in every week or two, and then it got to every couple of days, and then we intervened at 32 weeks. The boys were 2 pounds and 3 pounds roughly at 32 weeks, and we spent about 35 days in the NICU in Moncton. And again, everything just kind of kept being best case scenario. They grew enough, we were able to come home, we did all the follow-ups for the next 2 years. It was pretty continuous follow-ups, and again, most things were, everything was clear, on track. One of the boys does have a cerebral palsy diagnosis, but it's extremely mild, and so we haven't had to do a lot of intensive follow-up because of that. And yeah, now they're 7, still kind of best case scenario, and still just, you know, making us work for every moment with them.
Thank you, Jenna. So Karen, tell us about you.
Sorry. It was May 31st, so someone has a birthday coming up pretty soon. But I was 25 weeks pregnant, woke up with a really bad backache, and just instinctively knew something bad was happening. So it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up my husband and said, you know, I think we need to go to the hospital. And my son was born by 7:30 that morning. I kind of remember a little bit about the time he was born, and just, you know, how quiet it was in the room and things like that. And I think I probably asked the question that all moms would ask when your baby's born that early. I remember looking at my husband and saying, "Is he still alive?" You know, and he said, "Yeah, yeah, he's moving. I can see it." Right. So, anyways, he was taken to NICU. And it was a little while before I could go see him because I had a major C-section to deliver him. But the first time I walked into the NICU, I walked up to his bed and I said, "Hello, baby." And I saw his legs start kicking. And I knew at that moment, in all of this madness that was going on around him, that there was Mom. He recognized my voice. And I think that was the moment where I finally realized I was a mom, and this little baby needed me. So that started 7 months of complications. I remember he was. I had called a friend of mine because she had been twins at 32 or 33 weeks, and she had said, "Well, the first 48 hours are the worst." And so I remember waking up 2 days later thinking, well, we did 48 hours, like, you know, here we go. And the neonatologist came in at that point and said it had been a really bad night. And Matthew was on every form of life support they had, and everything was maxed out. And he had to get better now because there wasn't a lot that they could do from here. So slowly but surely, he got a little bit better, he stabilized a little bit more. By day 8, when I was kind of feeling confident, that's when they called me and said, you know, you better get in here, something's wrong. And when I got there, I found out that he had perforated 2 holes in his bowel, and they needed to go in and operate. So they actually had to build the operating room around him because he wasn't stable enough for them to move him in any way. So that day, they took out 10 centimeters of this small intestine. And I remember a neonatologist standing on the box, kind of looking over the screen and watching the operation. And I remember the moment that he came to me and he said, "It's done, he's fine." And I thought, at that moment, I thought, boy, if you can overcome this, you can do anything. And so, yeah, so he went through pretty much every complication, you know, to premature babies. He was ventilated for almost 4 months, so that was part of the length of stay that we had in there. As a result, he does have mild cerebral palsy. He has a global learning delay. And so, you know, the way I characterize that is, you know, like reading and writing would be like a kindergarten grade 1 level. So my son's 23 right now, and he's in a day program that he absolutely loves, which of course has been shut down right now due to COVID-19, so he's a little bit bored. But it's been a joy to raise him. It's been, I remember in the hospital when they were saying, we think this is going to happen, we think that's going to happen, and it was always delivered to me as really bad news. And now living through it and raising him, it's, you know, my mission in life is to make sure that medical people know that giving us this diagnosis of cerebral palsy and different things, it's not a death sentence to our family. We have had a wonderful life because of Matthew. It's been a wonderful 23 years raising him. It's been a huge learning experience for all of us. And it continues to just be great. So now I consider my 7 months of pure torture that I spent in NICU to be my 7 months of job training to now help other families.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Karen, next time, please speak a little closer to your computer because your audio is a little far away.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Torrie, share a little bit of your story with us, your journey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is the audio okay? Okay, great. Well, when I was 23 weeks, 6 days pregnant, just felt that there was something wrong. Was able to get in and see the doctor who did an exam and said, we need to go to the hospital. There's bulging membranes. So I went to the hospital and I was placed in Trendelenburg position, which is just so much fun to be in. That's where your head is lower than the rest of your body. Basically, they were giving me medications to try and reduce the fluid in the amniotic sac and have it gravity just pull it back down so they could put in an emergency cerclage. Basically, under the assumption that I had incompetent cervix, but later that night, just into my 24th day, my PEEP-ROM'd. So at that point, it was just stabilizing me for a medevac out of the Yukon. I was able to get medevaced out, which meant I had to be by myself down in at BC Women's Hospital. And it was 5 days later before they needed to perform an emergency C-section. At that point, I had become infected. The baby had also picked up the infection, and I also hemorrhaged substantially. So I was very, very ill. She was 24 weeks, 5 days, so she was very ill. But after about 12 hours, I was able to go see her and slowly healed myself. She had just the usual things that most 24-weekers will have. She had jaundice, so she had to be under Billy lights. She had infections. She had to have spinal taps, multiple blood transfusions, a PDA, which closed on its own with medication. Let's see, yeah, just the ventilation, the high frequency oscillation, and then eventually down to the CPAP and weaned off of the CPAP, and several bouts of what they just called suspected neck. It was not actually neck, but they treated it like neck, where they'd pull feeds. And then the feeding and growing issues, of course, she had a lot of those, and she's still very, very petite for her age. Little girl, she's upstairs throwing a tantrum right now, so if I seem distracted, that's why I can hear her kind of jumping around up there with her brother. But yeah, she did quite well after, yeah, from the start, she did very well. She was able to breastfeed, which was something I was very, very happy to be able to do. And then right before Christmas, we were able to come home. My stepson had drawn in the snow and written welcome home to her and stuff. So that was really sweet, because for the most part, I didn't get to see him while we were gone. And for about half the time, my husband wasn't able to be down there. I was there by myself, staying at Ronald McDonald House, which is a very nice one down there in at BC Women's. My mom was able to come see me for a few days, and my husband was there for the birth, but he had to go back. So he was there for the second half. He was there basically when she was on CPAP and whatnot. So yeah, that's about it. She's done very, very well, and I just love her the way she is, and any weird quirks that she might have, we just accept them. And I don't know if it's because she's premature or that's just who she is, so we just take it like that. So
thank you, Torrie.
Thank you.
Shakira, now the other side of the story. You are preemie yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I was born at Women's College, and I spent 8 months at Sick Kids Hospital in the NICU. And my growing up consisted of a lot of hospital appointments. After being discharged from the NICU, I had to go to the back to Women's College every 6 weeks. And then as I became older, I also had a tracheostomy operation. So I had to go to Sick Kids to get that sorted out, to get that looked at every 6 months, every 3 to 6 months, sorry. And yeah, so the tracheostomy, I also experienced jaundice while in the incubator, multiple surgeries. I had an ulcer, and then just constantly going back in and out of my, like for the tracheostomy. And then as I became a bit older, well, I guess before 4 years old, I also went to Erin Oaks for speech language pathology. And the story my mom tells me is that the SLP was trying to teach me ASL, because there was, again, with the whole, the medical expert saying to my mom, she's not gonna do this, she's not gonna do that. So there was, I guess, a thought after taking out the trach that I wouldn't talk. So they wanted to prepare me by teaching me as ASL. The funny story is that my mom says I would just sit there and just not really want to learn, I guess. May telling them I'm good, I'm not gonna need this. And yeah, so my mom treated me pretty much like any other kid. I don't have any siblings to compare, but she was just protective for my early years in terms of who would watch me when she went out because of having the trach, just wanting to make sure that the person was knowledgeable and would be able to, would not freak out if any situation occurred. And on my perspective, the only challenge that I faced was with my voice. Growing up, just not realizing it was different, and then when I realized it was different, I was like, oh, I didn't know there was something wrong with my voice. So just very a bit self-conscious about that. And then in terms of in my teenage or early adult years, working in positions where I had to talk for a long time would be a strain on my vocal cords. So I'd have to, if I, customer service, if I'm working like a 7-hour shift, I'd have to rest in between those times, like just not talk at all. And yeah, and that's.
Thank you, Shakira. I really like to hear her story because I'm sure many of us here have experienced that. Oh, your baby might not do this, might not do that. And we always believing the opposite and make things happen for our children. My son has quadriplegia cerebral palsy, and I heard so many things and he also had a profound hearing loss, and how much he prove the doctors and therapists wrong. It's pretty amazing. And seeing Shakira now, 29 years old, it's amazing for me. It gives me so much hope for the future for my own son, and I'm sure some of you can relate to that. But Jen, I want to ask you, how was your first year at home? Like, what are challenges that you faced, and what are strategies that really helped you that time?
To be very honest, it's hard to remember a lot of it now because it was, I think, so intense and so in the moment that there are a few things that stand out, but a lot of it just kind of blurs together for me, especially because it was twins, right? There were two of them, plus their sister's only a year and a half older. Our house has been chaos for 8 years now. But I think what really helped me was that, you know, like I said, we kept having this best case scenario. I knew that we were extremely lucky to have survived, all three of us, TTTS. A lot of families that have it aren't that lucky. We were very lucky to not have a lot of really, really hard complications. And so our follow-ups, you know, it was hard to get out with both of them and to do all that stuff, but it was really reassuring for me as a mother to be able to go to those follow-ups and to be able to have access to so many experts all the time. You know, with our daughter, she didn't have these kind of follow-ups, but with our boys, you know, we got assistance from public health and had someone who would come and check in, you know, with me for maternal health issues and mental health issues. And just, I think I was able to be really grateful in the moment for all the support that we did have, and recognize that, you know, we were lucky. We had people that were looking out for us. And every time anyone offered help, we knew to say yes, whether it was friends and family offering to help, or it was, you know, the medical side of things, people offering to help. It was very easy just to jump on board and say, yes, we are going to accept this help, and we're going to, you know, just take advantage of what we can and be grateful for that. And I think, you know, having that experience was what let me be able to then volunteer in the NICU, you know, as a peer support, and to do volunteer work with the foundation for a while, because I know that not everyone can get to that same place as quickly as I was able to. And so it kind of felt like it was my duty then to be able to speak up and to help as many people as I could, to, you know, because you're going to have that time when you have to mourn the loss of everything that didn't go the way you expected it to. But because things worked out for us, I was able to deal with that mourning part very quickly for me. And I'm forever grateful for that.
This is beautiful. And I really want to talk about this because I always feel what can come out of adversity, how people overcome or actually embrace those moments of difficulties and adversities and give back. So I really want to go back to that because I think this is such a beautiful message for families. And when I decided to put this group together, it's because each one of you in this group are actually doing this out of the experience that you had in the NICU. And I think those are, you know, the things that build this beautiful community that we so much look for and long for, this sense of community. And I think we have this here. So I want to go back to that. But I want to ask Torrie also, like, how was your first year at home? The challenge that you faced with your daughter, and which strategy that really helped to get through that first year, 2 years, because those are I think the most challenging ones of the NICU.
Yes, I would say, honestly, I didn't really get through well the first year. When you're in an open ward, like many of us have been, and you've got 20 babies in a room, your baby might be doing well, but you see things, you hear things that are awful. And I probably suffered from some sort of NICU Ptsd or anxiety for sure. So I spent the first year in my house. My husband is the one who went out and worked. He was the one who went out and did groceries and really kept everything together for us because I couldn't emotionally at that time cope with that. And I also physically wanted to distance with her. I see these babies on Preemie pages now wearing little onesies saying not my first quarantine. And I feel that way a lot with my daughter at this time because we didn't leave the house except for doctor's appointments for at least a year. After that, when I did start feeling better mentally and I felt that she was stronger physically, I got really into exercise, something that I'd never been into before, and learned that I really enjoy physical fitness. And I also wanted to give back and help other people. I think one of the things that I struggled with is when we flew back here on a commercial plane from the NICU, I remember going upstairs and taking a shower and suddenly just starting to cry and thinking about all the people that I had left behind that I was never going to see again because they lived so far from me, and survivor's guilt that I felt over situations as well. So I decided I wanted to find a community up here and make one if I could. And that's when I teamed up with our local family literacy center, who offered their space to me to develop, found a group called Preemie Parents of the Yukon, and started to find out that I wasn't alone and I wasn't by myself up here. And that's been helpful as well, just knowing that at least I'll always be there for the other women and men who are up here. But I'm not the only one. There's been other mothers that have really kind of shown through, and we've made friendships. So.
Thank you, Torrie, for sharing that. Important points there. Yes, in this quarantine, I also feel that we are back in the first year at home. Okay, we kind of lived that before, right? The hand washing, the vetting, the people coming to your home. And for me, like you, I lived the first year in appointments. That's the only reason I left the house, and Gabriel was on oxygen, and I was just in isolation mode, which was very, very difficult as well. So I think this pandemic kind of brought back that sense that, kind of a deja vu feeling that I had already experienced that. And many other moms that I've been talking to from the NICU, they say exactly the same thing. It's kind of relieving that first year. But thank you for sharing your struggles with PTSD, because I think it is very real. And we try to talk about this, but I don't think we talk about this enough. So I think that's a very important message to give to families, that this is happening, this happens to families, and how can we address that and build that community around those families. Karen, I'm not going to ask you your first year home because that was a long time ago. But I think I want to ask you, what have you learned from that experience? How your life changed from that experience?
You can hear me okay now? Is that better?
A little better if you're closer to the computer, I guess.
I think that this experience is the parents' experience. This is not the baby's experience. It's the parents. The babies don't remember it. And so I think all the learning and everything is for the parents. And I learned that I was resilient, I think, and I could really, I took a lot, and I didn't fall, and I think I sort of impressed myself with what I could handle. And I think the other thing is that if you knew the person I was before, I was very career driven. I was very much a ladder climber. I was also a bit timid. Like, I never liked to rock the boat and things like that. And I think that this experience, first of all, taught me that climbing the ladder wasn't the important thing in life. And that there were so many more. I mean, every day is a gift. And I was missing that in my life. And I think that the other thing it taught me, 7 months in the NICU teaches you to fight. It teaches you to be strong. It teaches you to speak out. And all of those definitely served me well once Matthew started going to school and I had to fight for resources. The old me would have let people walk over me. The new me was the mama bear standing up for her cub. And I think I noticed a lot of strength that I developed. Look at where it's taken me. I've spoken at conferences. I've done things like this. It's, that would have never happened had I not been through this experience. And so I think I have a whole appreciation for the experience, and I've learned to take an experience like that and grow from it and learn from it. And I think it's just it completely changed my life in such a positive way. I have such a good life, and I'm so grateful for it.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate all that you do for the families, because it is true that this experience helps us to be more resilient and, and work with families, hoping that we can share a little bit of our stories to help them build their own resilience too in that journey. Because I think when we are in the NICU, we don't see that. We don't feel that we are strong. We don't feel that we are resilient, but we are building that, right? And I think the time that we have after the NICU, that we actually reflect what that experience meant to you and you become because of it. But I want to ask Shakira now, because obviously she's on the other side. And Shakira, you hear all these stories from other moms. How is that similar to what your mom shares with you? And also I'd like you to share, is it a nice memory of your mom that you can share with us? Or was that, yes, you worry too much? Because we do.
As Karen said, I don't remember obviously anything. It's from the stories that my mom tells me. A lot of similar things, such as developing the resilience and realizing her strength. So in terms of memories, there's a lot of memories, and it's from pictures for me. But I would say that in terms of one thing that stands out for me is that she's a person that's really strong woman that, dealt with a year in NICU and mental health and other, trying to reach out to resources, trying to find resources to help herself. And then also when I was in school, just trying to support me. So yeah, I would say that's the sort of memories. She tried to instill the love of reading. So even when I guess to make sure that I was on par with the kids when I got to school, which I was, I knew how to do certain things that I guess typical 4-year-olds were not at the time in my class not doing, such as tying my shoes and reading at the level that I was reading. So she just made sure that I wasn't, I guess, falling behind. So I was always on par.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Shakira. Jenna, how did that experience change you?
I think it really helped me be more grateful for things, for sure. And I think it really helped drive home a lesson that I had started to learn earlier on, and I've talked about it lately a lot with people about this idea that we really need to make sure that we're not comparing ourselves and our experiences against anyone else's, because no one goes through the exact same thing and no one goes through it in the same way. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of going, oh, but look how it looks like they're dealing so well with this, or how quickly it seems that their preemie is advancing off the CPAP or something compared to mine. And it's really hard when you're in that environment not to compare. but one of our NICU nurses, I remember them telling us, you know, if we'd get down about, you know, oh, he's dropped a gram, or he had to go back on this, or, you know, you failed the car seat test. It's like, well, don't compare right now with what just happened before. Always go back, you know, whether you can go back 2 days, or you can go back 2 weeks, or you can go back and see how far you've come overall, and to make sure that you're looking at that bigger picture, not the small steps. And that's a lesson that I have kept with me and tried to keep up, you know, over the years, and in my own life, and not just for the kids, but for myself, going, okay, you get down on yourself, like, oh, you know, everyone should be, you know, rearranging their lives because we're all at home now, and you get caught up in that, like, oh, look what so-and-so is doing, and I'm not doing that. But no, I'm doing what I need to do, and I'm this far ahead of where I was a year ago or 5 years ago, if that's where I need to go to see where that difference is, and to see that I'm doing what I need to be doing, and not compare it even against myself in a way that isn't helpful.
Because I think we are hard on ourselves more than anyone else, right? So much expectation that we have in our own selves, and yes, and the comparison is so true. Like, okay, why this family is doing better than I'm doing? And sometimes, you know, obviously we have this image on social media that everybody's doing great, but it's not, because we all have our struggles as well, right? We all go through very difficult times and very happy times. And it's what do you want to really share with the world, how you're dealing with things. And I think you know, my hats off to all of you to share, to being vulnerable and share your stories and the struggles, because it is very real. And it's how do we move on with this, right? Because I think it's not, there's this beautiful TED talk that is, you don't move away from grief, you move on with grief, something like that. It's true, because you still have that part of you that is gonna be there, like maybe the loss of your pregnancy, or, you know, having the premature baby that you cannot change, but how do we move with that piece of your story moving forward? And I think those are things that we have to acknowledge, and all the feelings that come with it. So thank you for being very real and honest. And Torrie, how about you? What changed? How this changed you, your life trajectory?
Well, for sure, just the fact that she's my only child, and probably will be my only child, is not what I ever anticipated for myself. I always thought I'd have a big family, as much as I came from a big family. So just the whole family structure has changed. And I think because of that, having that only child, I don't take anything that she does for granted, because it's always going to be my first and my last experience with a baby doing that. So it's like everything she does to me is magic. And I would also say I'm probably more sensitive and defensive of my daughter than I probably would have been if she had been full term, when teachers or other people will comment on, you know, just her abilities or capabilities. It can really get me here. So yeah, I'm definitely more sensitive, but more in the moment, and just not willing to miss out on anything that I have with her, which also changed my career. You know, I'm a university graduate, but now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm very lucky to be able to do that, and so thankful that my husband has helped make this happen so that I don't miss out on anything. So yeah, that's how it's changed me, and probably changed my parenting if I had to guess.
Torrie, tell us a little bit about your parenting group.
Preemie Parents of the Yukon is just kind of a way for the families up here to get to know one another. While I was in the NICU down south, there was only one other family from the Yukon. So it's just been a way for me to create kind of a community for, if not anyone else, at least myself. I'd like to think that it's for more than just myself, but I would lie if I was saying that it didn't stem partially from a need and desire to have a community and a larger family of my own. And I look forward to when I'll be able to see them again, because, you know, with the current climate, it's not going to be anytime in the near future. But we worked in the past with the Family Literacy Center up here, who's been very good about giving us a clean, safe space for just us that other people couldn't access. And I've met some wonderful moms and amazing dads that just come into the group. Our kids got to play together, and after we kind of went off doing these physical meetings, meeting them online and seeing them grow as parents and seeing their babies grow. Probably the oldest kids in the group generally are about my age. I found that parents of older preemies weren't so interested in having that support, probably because they had found their own ways of coping and dealing, and they didn't need it. So the oldest children in that group are in that maybe 5-year-old range, and then we go down to about the newborn age. And being in such an isolated small community, we tend to know who those parents are when they come back up, or maybe I'll get alerted, like, you need to, hey, I know this mom and she got sent down and it's looking like this. So we kind of might know who they are even before their parents.
That's wonderful. So if they want to find your group, you have a Facebook page, right?
Yeah, that's the best way to find us now, because you won't find us meeting in person. So it would be if you just type in on Facebook, Preemie Parents of the Yukon, and we voted as a group, and right now we do take parents from Northwest Territories and Nunavut, because there's, as far as I know, no groups established in those areas. And I don't feel like an expert on the other territories, but until somebody steps forward and wants to make that for their community, they're definitely welcome to meet with us, because it's a completely different experience for us. If our kid has complications, they're not going to be staying at the hospital 2 miles down the road. They're going all the way back to Vancouver or all the way back to Stollery. So, you know, it's just a different kind of preemie experience, I think, in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen, how did you end up in the hospital as a volunteer coordinator?
How did I end up back at the hospital?
Yes.
Well, we have a nurse here in Winnipeg who's now retired. Her name is Doris Sawatsky-Dixon, and I always say that she was FICARE before FICARE was cool. She was the one who always looked after families. And, you know, my son is 23. 23 years ago, families weren't included the way that they are today. And so Doris was doing that as best she could back then, and always worked because she knew that families needed to be supported. And so she initially got a grant, and I got to go back and work and work with families. And I did that for 4 years, and then my funding ran out. And for 10 years, Doris kept saying to me, I'm this close to getting you funding again. I'm this close. And I thought, well, it's been 10 years. I don't see this happening. And then lo and behold, it happened. And so I got to come back and work again with families 10 years later. And having done the program previously, I got to come back and build a better program. You know, so you know, thanks to her, and you know, every hospital needs somebody who's going to advocate for families, and who's going to create these positions for parents to come into the hospital and work for families. Because you know, we can have all the support in a hospital, but when I can go to a parent, or one of my volunteers can go to them and say, I've been here before, you see a whole different look on a parent's face. You're not another staffer coming up to them. You're not another volunteer. You're somebody who gets it. And so the parents that are in an ICU completely appreciate the fact that we're there and we're supporting them, and we're around, we're accessible to them, and we do lots of different programming, we do lots of different things for them, and it's such a joy to me to get to know these families. And you know, we talked about what I learned before being an NICU parent. I'm learning more and more and more with every family that I meet and get to know, there's a huge takeaway for me too. So I think, you know, it's just such an experience for all of us. It's very special.
Thank you. Shakira, I'm sure your life experience had guided your career choice. Can you share with us how you end up doing what you do today?
Yeah, so I started working, I got a position as a camp counselor in Toronto for a nursery school called Yes I Can. And at the time, this was 10 years ago, at the time I didn't know that they specialize in supporting children with autism. And so I got the position. And through that experience, I realized, okay, I actually enjoy working with, and it was autism, but then other disabilities as well. And that through that position, I realized I enjoyed working with individuals with disabilities. I ended up staying at that camp for 3 summers. I went for 3 summers, and which then led to, after I finished my sociology degree at U of T, I dabbled around, traveled to China, came back, and then I decided to take the behavioral science technology program at George Brown, which taught me how to support individuals with developmental disabilities, autism, mainly autism, but also developmental disabilities and mental health challenges. So I think just subconsciously, I naturally found my passion of working with individuals with disabilities, just as a person who had grew up with a disability as well. So yeah, I think that's just naturally how it progressed.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shakira. So we're coming to an end, but I want you all to give a message to a mom who is either sitting in a hospital or sitting at home, maybe the first year home, or a mom who has a child with a disability, because I think some of us have the experience of raising a child with disability. And we know how hard it is at the beginning when you first get a diagnosis of any sort. Jenna, one last message for the moms for Mother's Day.
I would just, reiterate that, let yourself mourn and feel the sad feelings, but find a way to, like you said, move with them. Don't dwell on them, but make sure you feel them, because if you don't, then you will, they're going to come calling at some point. They're there for a reason. And it's okay to have them, and it's okay to find a group that can help you to figure out how you're going to move ahead in all of this. And I think, I was lucky enough to have 2 really great support systems here. I had twins, so I had a group of twin moms, and we also had a parent support group for preemies that was going on. I had both groups to draw from, and if I hadn't had those parents to reach out to and ask for help, and some of our NICU nurses had shared that they had preemie babies and had experiences that we could, have that connection on. Finding those connections makes so much difference. And in the world of technology, you can find those people, even if they're not someone that you can sit down and have a coffee with in person.
Absolutely. Thank you. Karen?
I would say that possibly this experience is the hardest thing that anybody might have to go through. And if you're going through it, or you've just passed it and now you're at home, you should really honor the experience and what you have survived, because not everybody can do this. And it takes a very special mother to be able to be in the NICU and to be there day after day with their child. And so I think you should embrace your strength and appreciate the experience that you're going through or that you've been through. Appreciate what you can learn from it, and appreciate that you're probably a better mother because of it.
Thank you. Shakira?
I would just like to say you are brave and strong, and even though you're dealing with these difficult times, just, you know, appreciate it and just think that know that you'll have stories to look back on and memories.
Thank you. Torrie, one last message to the moms?
Yeah, I just say to them that you're very special, that you're going to get to see things that hardly any parents on earth get to see, and experience those things. You're going to experience feelings that hardly any other parents get to experience out of the gate. That makes you very special, and it will change you as a parent, I think, so much for the better. And I'm so proud of you, and you're doing an awesome job. And every day that you get through this, I'm just very, very proud of you. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side as you'll get through it.
Thank you. Thank you all of you for joining me here today. It was such an honor to hear your stories, and, you know, with open heart and open minds that we're all in this together. Our experiences are really, we had to validate our feelings with this experience that we had as a preemie moms, and it's going to carry with us for many, many years to come. So thank you all, and thank you all for joining us here today. My message to you is that to try to find the joy in the biggest, you know, difficult moments. There are some joys. And for me, when I look at my son, he is the joy. He's the gift that came out of this. Regardless all the challenges that I have with him, there are many, I see the joy in him, and the gift of the life that he is for my life. So I think that is a beautiful thing. And despite all these challenges that we have, I would not change anything that happened to us in this journey. So I wish you all happy Mother's Day. And if you want to join us on Monday, 1 p.m., I will be interviewing Ashley Judge, who is an early educator. She has a lot of tips on what we can do with our babies and toddlers at home during these very difficult times that we are all locked in together in the house. So thank you all so much. Have a lovely Mother's Day. Bye for now.
Thank you.